welcome back to my channel. I am very excited for today's video. It is going to be a ranking the last 10 palettes that I tried, and this will likely be the last time I rank palettes, like rank recent palettes that I've tried until we do my year-end palette ranking. And this, I think, in all of my history of ranking eyeshadow palettes was likely my most difficult, because all 10 eyeshadow palettes that I'm going to be ranking for you today, I really like and enjoy. So really it just came down to kind of like the uniqueness of the color story, you know, the shifty shades, things like that. We're gonna get into all of it today. So if you are interested in how I would rank the last 10 palettes that I've been testing out and trying, which by the way, in order for it to make it into this video, I have to have used every pan of eyeshadow within the palette at least once. So if you're interested, stay tuned. First, if you have yet to subscribe to my channel and you like project painting content, palette themed content, or just chit-chatting about makeup, I'd love if you'd consider subscribing before moving on. And other than that, let's jump into the video. Alright, I don't know what is happening with my hair today. I have such thick hair, you guys, and it's just like so heavy lately, and just like honestly, ponytails give me a headache. I had a claw clip in, and my hair is so thick that it doesn't stay well in a claw clip, and I showered yesterday and I just feel like maybe I need some dry shampoo. Anyway, this video is not about the state of my hair. This video is about how I would rank the last 10 palettes that I've tried. And as I mentioned in the introduction, this was so incredibly difficult. I really like all of the eyeshadow palettes that I'm going to talk to you about today, and I feel like I could make an argument for why this is a good eyeshadow palette for my collection for all 10 of these. I feel like in this day and age, it's getting harder and harder to have like the quality has definitely stepped it up in under all realms of eyeshadow, so it really is hard to have like a horrible palette. But I enjoyed my time so much with all of these. As I said, I have swatches that I will share with each palette. I have looks, any looks that I've created with the palette that I've taken pictures of and saved, I'll share over on the side with you. I feel like I'm stalling because I feel so bad about my number 10 ranked palette, because I really do like this palette. I really enjoyed this palette, but coming in at number 10, I have my Alter Ego Daylight eyeshadow palette. I will be sharing links with all of these palettes, and if I do have a code with any of these brands, I will pop it on the screen. Never any pressure to order with my code, but if you are ordering on a brand's website that you can put a code in, like put a code in to save money for yourself, especially in this day and age, in this economy. All right, so we have the Daylight palette by Alter Ego. This palette was obviously inspired by, or is duping, the Natasha Denona I Need a Nude eyeshadow palette, and I do really enjoy having that eyeshadow palette. My critique of the Natasha Denona was I did not like the two peach colored shades in that palette, and I would give the same critique in this palette. I wish we had just fully committed to a cool toned palette, other than I'm like, why? I guess we could do one warm toned look with this palette, but I really am like, I wish we had just fully committed to a cool toned palette. I wish we could swap these out for even more just like not fully cool tone, but like neutral, like darker, maybe brown shades, because my other critique of this palette is that it just is almost too gray. I'm not someone who likes something uber cool toned. I like cool tones when it comes to like dusty pinks and purples or blues, but when it comes to like brown, hues of brown or like grays, I really do prefer like a warm brown to something cool toned. So I wish, and this would be my same critique of the Natasha Denona I Need a Nude. I get this is duping that palette, but I wish we had more like cool leaning browns or neutral browns, rather than like it feels almost mostly grayscale with like these random pops of warm shadows. What I love about this eyeshadow palette is these shimmer shades. They are extremely sparkly, really beautiful on the eyes, and if you are someone who likes a neutral sparkly shadow, or just like a very neutral look with a sparkly shadow, I think you would really enjoy this. If this color story is something that spoke to you, Alter Ego makes excellent quality palettes. This palette is weighted, it feels heavy, it feels luxe. I think the packaging is really pretty. They do have magnetized pans, so you can mix and match. The mattes are easy to work with, the mattes are easy to blend. For me, it really just came down to the color story of this one, and that is why I'm ranking this one at number 10. Coming in at number 9, kind of similar story to the past palette. This is coming down to color story, and this is just a boring basic color story. but that is what this palette sets out to be, so I really can't fault it for that. I'm just so much more excited about the color stories of the palettes ranking above this. That is why I'm ranking the Lawless The Dreamy Dozen Volume 2 at number 9. They did send this palette to me, which I'm really grateful for. I would not have gone out and purchased this palette on its own. And I have a really like hot and cold relationship with the Lawless eyeshadow formula. I've had a couple palettes that I really enjoyed from them. The baby one as well as the glam one. I thought the lavender one was one of the worst palettes I've tried in the last several years. And I also was not a big fan of the really large The One eyeshadow palette. But for just your everyday basic warm browns or like warm neutral looks, this palette is like hits the nail on the head. I really do like the shimmers in this palette as well. They are a little bit more of that like almost like tacky texture, but they do pack a punch on the eyes, which I personally really appreciate. I think these two shimmer shades are probably my favorite. They're very beautiful, and for everyday work appropriate looks, I was really pleased with the looks that I got from this palette. As I said, I'm just, you know, I'm so much more into indie shadows and just a fun color story. This one, it wasn't gonna be the top ranked no matter what. All right. This might surprise some of you because I love Ensley Rain so much, but coming in at number 8, and this kind of surprises me as well, I have the Ensley Rain Flutter eyeshadow palette. This is what this one looks like. It is stunning. It is beautiful. My favorite eyeshadow shade or type of shade of all time is like a blue, almost like an aqua blue shimmery shade. And so I was so excited about this one because we have Moonflower, which is like a really beautiful kind of green blue brown. We have Mystic Meadow, we have Sylph. Like all three of those shadows are what is right up my alley in terms of like my perfect, most loved type of eyeshadow shade. The reason I'm ranking this one at number 8 is I was a little bit disappointed in, I don't even want to say the quality, but for example, Mystic Meadow is pretty sheer unless you have like a white base or a black base underneath, which is fine, but it's just not always what I get from an Ensley Rain palette, so something a little bit different. I also feel like this bright orange shade is just a little bit out of place for this palette. I kind of want to say the same about Pixie Petal, but I actually really enjoy the shade Pixie Petal. It is such a punchy, like holographic, almost like Barbie fuchsia, that I can't fault that palette. I will also say the matte shadows, like they blended fine, but this is probably the like, they blended fine, but I know Ensley Rain to have a better quality matte formula. Overall, there was just something that wasn't like the tippity top Ensley Rain formula with this palette that I know and love. And I was so excited for this color story, so that was a little bit of a bummer. That my expectations for this one too may have just been like so high and it didn't quite meet / exceed my expectations. So that could be another reason I'm ranking this at number 8, but regardless, I still think it's a beautiful palette. I'm happy to have it in my collection. As I said, all of these palettes are, you know, I wouldn't trade them, I wouldn't declutter them, and I'm excited to especially continue to play around with those favorite shades of mine in this palette. Coming in at number 7, I have the Fantasy Cosmetica Enchanted Autumn eyeshadow palette. This was the palette that was done in collaboration with Amanda from Makeup Just for Fun, and I think this is a stunning palette. I will say my one complaint with this one is in terms of the mattes, I wish there was maybe something just a little bit lighter. Sometimes I look at this palette and I'm not exactly sure the direction that I want to take this palette. I am not the collaborator, so I don't get to curate the color story, but for me, I don't always love like a raspberry or a berry eyeshadow shade on my eyes, so I almost would take this, like I would almost just trade out the pop of berry. That is my only complaint. I did a look with this palette though, using these 3 shades at the top that I absolutely loved. The shade Libra is such a stunning, just such a punchy, stunning silver, but it almost has this like periwinkle blue purple shift to it. It's so freaking pretty. The shade Emerald is also a very beautiful punchy green. I like Scorpio, but I will say it's not the most intense like green red green sort of shifty shade that I've ever worked with. The mattes perform really nicely. I will say not all of the shades are as punchy as I maybe expected, but that also was likely purposeful. So those are the reasons that I'm ranking this at number 7. All right, you guys, 6 and above, so freaking difficult for me to decide how to rank these. So freaking difficult. But coming in at number 6, I have the Bella Beauté Bar Strange and Unusual eyeshadow palette. It'll also be interesting when I rank all of these at the end of the year and potentially use some of these palettes a few more times before the end of the year. Like, will my rankings change? Because I feel like my ranking for today's palettes could change just depending on, you know, how I'm feeling when I wake up that day. But here is the Bella Beauté Bar Strange and Unusual eyeshadow palette. I do absolutely love Bella Beauté Bar. They are one of my top, between Bella Beauté Bar and Ensley Rain, those are my top 2 indie brand eyeshadow brands. Indie brands? What am I saying? This palette is stunning. The only thing I will say is I look into this and I don't want to say I necessarily want more variety, but it's not my personal favorite color story. I just, you know, if I'm doing a purple look these days, I like something that like is leaning really cool purple, as in like a dusty mauve sort of purple, rather than like, I don't want to call it like a royal purple, but something like that. I love the blues and greens. Like, I love these shades in the palette. I love this really fun recently Deceased shade. We know I love a pop of a neon, so I love that. I don't reach for reds that frequently, but I did do a look using these 3 shadows right here, which was perfect for an Iowa State game. Like, these are literally the colors of Iowa State, so that worked out really well. I just think when I look at this color story compared to the color stories of the palettes that I'm going to talk about above this, I just prefer those color stories a little bit more. I still love the shiftiness and the special shades in this palette. I just love the top 5 just a hair more. Coming in at number 5 is going to be the Fantasy Cosmetica Harvest of Souls eyeshadow palette. This is one that I feel like with more use, this one might even rank higher, but I've only used this palette to create 4 separate looks, and I really kind of stuck to the quads for the most part. I did a look, a purple and green look, kind of sticking to this quad, but also grabbing for this shade right here. And then on Halloween, I did a look with these 4 shades, but I used the shade Poison to kind of add like a purple and green effect to it, and not just totally go purple with that one. I don't know if the video is posted yet. If not, it will be coming. I have a 4 looks 4 palettes where I created a look using these blues, and I will say these 2 shimmer blues might be some of my favorite shimmer blues in my entire collection. When we're talking about a straight blue, they don't necessarily have that aqua shift to it, but this is such a beautiful mid-tone like cobalt blue shimmer shade. I can't think of another cobalt blue shimmer in my collection that like is as perfect as this. I love a cobalt blue, and I'm not saying this is like straight cobalt, but it's giving cobalt blue vibes, and I am so here for it. These 2 layered together make such a beautiful blue, and the metallic shadows in this palette blend, like, not the metallic shadows, the matte shadows in this palette blend like a dream, especially for being on the more colorful side. So I'm really impressed with this palette. I'm excited to continue to play with this one. Currently, this one would rank number 5 in my roundup today. Coming in at number 4, I have the Cosmic Beauty Undergrowth eyeshadow palette. If you are a green lover, this is a great pickup for you. I honestly would recommend this over the Natasha Denona Yucca palette. I feel like this gives more dimension, more just like nuances amongst the palette. There's just so many beautiful shifty shades. I did struggle with a couple of the matte shadows in this palette. Specifically, Nettle is the one that really gave me a run for my money. I'm also not someone who loves mints, so I really could have done without Vegetation. I do still like this shade. It's more of like a pastel green rather than like a true mint. I feel like it's reading mint on camera, but in person, it's not what I would consider to be a mint shade. The special shades in this palette are truly what steal the show for me. Like, I'm literally drooling. Undergrowth, Boggy, Swamp, Wilderness, Fireflies, Fungi, and Cordyceps. Honestly, just so many shifty, special, smooth, very thin, but pack a punch special shades within this palette. It is a stunning one, especially if you're a green lover. Like, this would probably be my tippity top favorite green eyeshadow palette in my entire collection. Just above that, at number 3, I have the Cosmic Beauty Neutrals eyeshadow palette. And the reason that I'm ranking this one above the Undergrowth, I think the special shades in this palette I love more. In terms of more variety and just like every day, and I didn't have any issues with the quality of any of the shadows in this palette. That's why I ranked this one above the Undergrowth. However, if I had to give up one of these palettes and could only keep one of them, I likely would keep this one. I don't know if that makes any sense at all. Maybe you're thinking to yourself, this one should be ranking below it, but what I love about this is we have neutrals, we have, you know, a row of like pinks or purples, or like you can really take this in a pink direction, a purple direction. We've got greens, we've got mustards and yellows, we've got this red, we've got neutral, brown shades. There are so many different directions you can take this eyeshadow palette. I truly feel like your options with this are endless. With the Undergrowth, like you're getting a green look. I even tried to do like a neutral look with this. It still leaned green. With this, I feel like you could do such a variety of different looks and they're not gonna look the same, if that makes any sense. So for me, I'm ranking the Cosmic Beauty neutrals at number 3. Coming in and number 2 is my Ensley Underland eyeshadow palette. I am gonna admit to you guys, when I first saw the teaser photos for this, I was like, I probably will get it because it's Ensley and I purchased just about every palette from them, but I wasn't as excited about it as I ended up being later down the road, because I was like, that is such a dark palette, super, super intimidating. But I did a full dedicated review with either 3 or 4 looks, I think 3 looks with this palette, and there is one look that I created, and I remember when I created it, it was like a green, but then I believe I used Surreal, one of the like more reddish shades all over the lid. And once I created that look, I was like, I kind of wish I took this in a different direction. But then I ended up filming, I believe it was my Sephora VIB sale recommendations, and when I was editing that video, I could not stop looking at my eyeshadow, and I was like, oh my gosh, that actually is such a beautiful look with this palette. Ensley always just knocks it out of the park and kills it with their formulas. The shade Shattered Looking Glass, the marbled shade, is such a beautiful shifty periwinkle shade. Like it translates so well onto the eyes. I feel like maybe you don't always get that with a marbled shade, just because depending on, you know, how you swirl your brush or how you put your finger in, it really can read a little bit differently. But I have had really good luck with the shadow. I've used it multiple times. The holographic shade Wicked Wildflowers is so stunning. This palette truly is such a beautiful grungy dream, in my opinion. If you like grungy, like, look no further. Also love the outer packaging. I feel like they truly just killed it with this palette. I'm so impressed, and this would be my number 2. That means my number 1, you guys, is an eyeshadow palette that I never thought that I would own. I remember when this palette launched, I was like, oh, that's an easy skip for me. And now I couldn't imagine life without the recently de-influenced palette from Bella Beauté Bar. I absolutely love this, and I feel like the reason I was kind of not interested in this palette previously was because I really didn't think I would get a lot of use out of these 9 shades. That's over half of the palette, and why would I buy an eyeshadow palette that I didn't plan to use over half the palette? Now I will say, I do think these 6 shades will end up being my most used shades out of this palette. There was a look that I created with this palette using the shade Monetize, Backlash, and Collab. One of my favorite looks I think I've ever created. Just the way that shifted when we're talking about a blue-green aqua sort of situation, that was like I died and gone to heaven, and I got to choose my eyeshadow for my funeral, and like it was me in the casket, you know? I really don't want to die soon, so that was a little bit more morbid than I meant to bring it today. But I also created a really fun kind of like burnt orange fiery red look that I really enjoyed with this palette. Since testing this palette, I've also gotten the Bella Beauté Bar Vamp eyeshadow palette and did a red look with that palette, which really made me step outside of my comfort zone, but I loved that look, and it makes me want to play around with reds more. So I actually think that I may end up getting more use out of these 9 shadows than I originally anticipated. And so for me, my current number 1 out of these 10 palettes is going to be the recently de-influenced palette from Bella Beauté Bar. After that, that will wrap up and conclude today's ranking the last 10 palettes I've tried. I would love to know in the comments below, what are your most recent palettes that you've tried? Are they good? Are they bad? Let us know in the comments below. Other than that, thank you so much for sticking around to watch today's video and for supporting me and my channel as you guys always do. I love you guys so much, and I will catch you in my next video. Bye.